in last place, Farida, who obviously thankfully is gone. A lot of people are saying it'll be more boring without her in there, but I didn't find her entertaining. I just found her annoying and an irritant, and genuinely offensive at times, like the trans question she asked. I think she kind of knew it was provocative. Like when we saw, I feel she's a nasty spirited person, and she's the type of narcissist who thinks that, you know, she's being positive, and she says all these positive platitudes about herself, but there's no actual evidence. Like I remember even in her interview, she was like, "Oh, I just laughed so much. I just laughed all the time." I'm like, I saw none of that. Maybe they edited all that out, but I just saw you moaning and bullying and giving out to people and asking offensive questions, as well as just disgusting habits like eating someone's dinner off their plate. I was like, no, you're just not my kind of people. And like even just refusing to let other housemates control the shopping. It was just, she's a nasty person, and I don't want to see that type of person on Big Brother. It makes the show actively a negative watch for me, because I'm like, I can't even watch the other housemates because this person is dominating the conversation so much. So delighted with the eviction result. As for the 15 that remain, in 15th I have Trish, who I know nothing about. I haven't learned anything about her as a person. I'm sure she could be really sound, but again, she just, there seems to be, she's struggling to kind of get noticed, and again, that's just not a good sign in this type of show. In 14 I have Tom, who I don't dislike, but I just find him to be a less interesting, complex version of Maddie. And I know they look like each other, but they also are very similar personality wise. But Maddie just has a bit more depth to him. Speaking of depth or lack thereof, at 13 I have Paul. I'm fundamentally opposed to Love Island rejects being picked on this show, like, who have nothing to actually offer. And I enjoyed how when he was getting nominated for eviction, people picked up on his total lack of depth, which, like, yeah, dead on. He's just, again, and he's probably a sound young fella, but it's just, there's nothing there. At 12, I've got Olivia, who I initially liked just because I love the kind of soft Scottish accent. But no, she's really annoying me now. She's like a child who's drank too many fizzy drinks and is just about to crash permanently. And again, you're like, come on, please crash. Just please crash. Just go to bed or have a nap and let other people talk. At 11, I've got Noki. I haven't really seen anything of substance, but of course, because she's beautiful, the media are trying to drum up romantic subplots with the likes of Zach and Paul. But again, when it comes to just her, there's just nothing there entertainment wise. And similarly for number 10, Dylan, who seems like the type of guy who I'd have a point with, but I don't like housemates who make me feel like I'd be more entertaining than them. I'm watching it to be entertained and learned and enlightened and so on and so forth. In at 9, Maddie. And what can you say about Maddie? No, that was a serious question. What can you say about Maddie? There's just not much. Like I said, more interesting than Paul, but that's not saying much in itself. On to the housemates that I'm more a fan of, the top half. In at 8, I've got Chanel, who I think is going to rise as time goes on. I think she's spicy, and I think she's someone that I think is under the radar now. But as the numbers start to dwindle, I think she's going to really add to the house drama and intrigue and so on. Because she seems like the type of person who just says things and does things and doesn't care about the consequences, but not in like a nasty kind of attention seeking way. She's just, that's her and that's her personality. And I think she's got a lot to offer. Zach is number 7 on my list, but probably the person I think is most likely to win right now if I had to put money on it. I did like him sharing the stories of growing up in Thailand and of being a man of the people. Even when he was middle management, he was still hanging around with the little guys in the office task last week. He's got all the makings of a winner, but from someone who enjoys the more kind of quirky contestants, that's not fully a compliment. Like, again, I think of the likes of Craig in the first Big Brother. I think of the likes of Anthony, who would have, like, sometimes the winner is by default like the nicest person, but not the most entertaining. And I'm all about the entertaining people. In at 6, Jenkin, who is just exactly the right person to enjoy having the worst luck. He brings such an interesting, new, fresh dimension to the house because it's so funny when shit goes wrong for him. Like, it is good when I don't want to be nasty to him. I like when he gets his stuff back and nice things happen again. But like, it is funny when he's like, something shit happens to him and he's like, oh, for fuck's sake. It's brilliant. In a 5, I actually like Kerry, and I think the public is going to sour on her. The housemates are already starting to do so, but I actually really love her being so outspoken, and she's also morally driven. I'm always drawn to people who don't care if they're upsetting people and will just say things if they feel it. I'm also like, I love people who are kind of visual representatives for like disability without making it a thing, without making it all of their personality, but again, just being visible and being seen and kind of letting other people know it can be seen. And she doesn't let it hold her back from doing any of the tasks. I really really respect them and I have a lot of admiration for Kerry. But like I said, I do worry how long she's going to last, because she is going to upset people, and she's going to trigger a lot of mammy issues, I feel, if I'm being perfectly honest. In at number 4, I've got Henry, who I fear is going to be a future British Prime Minister when the right-wing culture war gets their claws into him and empowers him, no doubt. And he may even one day cause tangible damage to the fabric of society as a whole. But I think for now, he's just really good TV. He's entertaining. And even if we are potentially creating a monster by putting him and giving him a platform, he is very entertaining. I loved him in The Task last week. I do enjoy British toffs, as you'll see as we go out throughout the list. But yeah, I like Henry for now. But I just worry about the consequences of liking Henry in the future, because I probably would have said something similar around Boris Johnson when he was just the guy who was occasionally on Have I Got News for You? And yeah, look what happened there. In at number 3, Hallie, who I think is yet to really captivate people. And Hallie's another person who I think genuinely could win this. But I think I wouldn't hold it against her for not being like kind of, outwardly kind of entertaining in the way that some the top 2 in particular are. I think that's more on her just being 18 and kind of figuring out her own journey, which to volunteer to be vulnerable and share that journey on such a large scale, especially while she's not at the end of it. You know what I mean? You had, say, Nadia of the past told a similar story in an earlier Big Brother, and at a very different time for understanding trans people when they were much less ingratiated in society, and she put a human face on that journey. And she was kind of towards the end and living her everyday life kind of, and had been doing so for a while. And even though kind of the journey is never complete, especially while society struggles to kind of accept trans people as a whole, I think, it was probably a little bit easier for Nadia, whereas Hallie is right in the middle of that journey. She's so young. But I think for her to share it, I just have respect and admiration for her. And it's not only essential for the trans community at a time when it's really, really needed, because a lot of hatred is on, the rise, and you have a lot of public figures like, what's his name, Graham Linehan, J.K. Rowling, and all of these fucking idiots who just don't understand it but want to have their say anyway, because their version of normal is getting challenged and they just can't deal with it, because essentially they're just aging out of modern society, and they're taking that out and using their platform to take it out on a really vulnerable group who actually need support. But I think it's really added an extra dimension to the show. It adds a kind of meaning, it adds a purpose, it adds like kind of a Big Brother can be good for society when it's really, really working, because again, it just broadens people's horizons and allows people to see, again, in the same way that you can see, I'm not a Tory by any means, I'm a social democrat, but I can enjoy watching Henry and I can actually see things from his perspective. And in the same way, I think a lot of people who may have preconceived notions about trans people, Hallie makes that into a real person, and she's a good, nice person with a lot to offer, and really well spoken, and she gives an extra dimension that I think that's the cure to ignorance, just exposure, and kind of positive exposure. And I think Hallie is just a great representative. I actually I'm saying this and I probably should put her higher on the list now, because I didn't realize I felt that strongly, but in at number 2 I've got Jordan, who the deceptively charming posh person is a classic Big Brother trope. Shout out to one of my Big Brother GOAT contestants and Derek from Big Brother 6. And Jordan is a phenomenal find. Again, someone who just has loads of edges, who just, I feel like we can really dig deep into Jordan, but also even if we don't and he's just making an off the cuff comment, he's hilarious in everything he says, even if he's not meaning to be, but he often is meaning to be, like he is actually intentionally funny too. I also really like how we won't be told what to do or who to be. And I really hope the public sees what I see in him and latches onto him, because I have a lot of time for Jordan. He is great crack. But in at number 1, I don't know, maybe I'm in a minority of this. I hope I'm not. I want Yin Run to win. She is phenomenal. I love her and I laugh at absolutely everything she says and does. She is incredible. She had me from the moment that she entered the house while everyone else was playing musical statues because a Big Brother had told her, and she just hid. I'm like, she is all of us. She is all of us. And for me, the most real and wholesome housemate in there, while again, everything she does and says is hilarious. And she's just adorable and a beacon of light and positivity. I want Yin Run to go the whole way. So she's my number 1 in my Big Brother power rankings. But the nature of these shows is that changes as time goes on. So we might check in more on Big Brother as the show goes on.